Hello, my name is Hulya Onel B.S. and I'm a naturalist at Walter V. Jacobs Memorial Nature Park, which is one of Caddo Parish parks. Welcome to Cool Bugs program. Today we're going to talk about crawfish, or crayfish, or crawdad, or mudbug. This is a creature with many names. There are over 500 species of crawfish all over the world. 70% of them lives in Louisiana. But today we're going to talk about the most common ones we have in Louisiana, which would be the swamp crawfish, which is red, and white crawfish. The swamp crawfish, the red one, lives in swamps, ditches, and a small body of waters, but the white one lives in a bigger body of waters like rivers and big lakes. Before we start talking about the crawfish we have in Louisiana, let's talk about their classification first. Where do they belong in animal kingdom? Well, they belong to phylum Arthropod, which means jointed legs. Arthro means joint, pod means leg or foot. So they're in the same phylum with insects, arachnids, and myriapod. They belong to the class crustacean and order Decapod. Deca means 10 in Greek, and pod means leg or foot. So they have 10 legs. Let's see. Here is my crawfish. And we got this from one of the bayous in our park, so it is red. This is the swamp crawfish, and look at its 10 legs, 5 on each side. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These two in the front have developed cheilies, bigger pincers, but each leg has a tiny pincer at the end. See, it can grab. They can grab with every little leg because each of them has a pincer at the end. And the good thing is, when they lose a limb, it will grow back. Every time they molt, it will grow a little bit bigger. So when you see a big and a small pincer, it means most probably it has lost one of its front legs for some period. One of them will be smaller than the other one. Let's talk about the anatomy first. Head and thorax fuse together to make up the cephalothorax, and it has segmented abdomen. And here is the tail. The middle flap is called telson. Pairs on the side are called uropods. It has a pointy part in front of the head. It is called a rostrum, and it has compound stalk eyes. It has 2 very long antennae and a pair of smaller antennae here. These are the appendages. These 2 are the appendages that they put the food into their mouth right here. And here is the swamp crawfish. It is holding a fish food, a little bowl of fish food in his appendages in the front. And as you see, it is taking it, it's moving it towards its mouth and taking little bites out of it. The crawfish have very good eyesight. They have compound eye stalks. You can see in this video how the eyes are protruding forward at the tip of a stalk. And those green balls on the rostrum are not a part of this crawfish, and they are the fish food coming down from the aquarium. And you can see the stalk very clearly here, the eye stalk. Also, they can move their eyes independently from each other. Grabs. They can grab with those little pincers at the end of each leg. Let's compare the two species. This is the swamp crawfish, which is red, and this is the white crawfish. This is again an exoskeleton that has been molted. As you see, white crawfish has a very skinny pincer compared to the bulky pincer of the swamp crawfish. And this is the rostrum. Here is the cephalothorax of this one that molted earlier. Here is the rostrum, the pointed part, and the eye stalks on each side, and head and thorax are fused together to form the cephalothorax as one piece. As you see, the exoskeleton is thin, but it is very tough. It is very tough. It doesn't crumble easily. How do we tell a male from a female? Pay attention to the picture, the circles in the... Okay, this is a female, because if it were a male, there would be two long claspers here. They look like two hockey sticks. It doesn't have any of those here, as you see. And here are the receptacles of the female. A female crawfish can lay up to 200 eggs. She lays eggs typically in the burrow, and they're fertilized in the burrow too. And the eggs become attached to the swimmerets on the underside of the female's abdomen. And she curls her tail to keep them there like a scoop. The eggs hatch in 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the temperature, and they have the same structure as an adult crawfish, only they are very, very tiny. And they leave mother's protection in about 2 weeks. Crawfish are detrivores. They eat rotting plants and leaves and other organisms. They also feed on snails, insect larvae, worms, and insects. Another new one. Crawfish can live up to 20 years. They have a long lifespan. Okay, let's talk about crawfish dish. It doesn't matter what color the crawfish is when it is alive, they all turn red when cooked. There's a reason for that. A crustacean's exoskeleton contains several proteins called pigments. The orange pigment is called astaxanthin. In those crawfish that are not red, astaxanthin is not visible because it is wrapped tightly with another pigment protein called crustacyanin. When cooked, this crustacyanin, which is wrapped around astaxanthin, is destroyed. So it lets the astaxanthin free, and thus it becomes visible. That's how the shell turns red. This astaxanthin also gives the salmon its red color too. They take this pigment with their food. Same thing goes for lobsters. Crustacyanin is the pigment that gives some crawfish their blue color.
1, 2, 3. Oh, I got one! I got one! Holy mackerel! There it is!
Whoa!
That is a blue crayfish!
I told you to go for that rock!
Heavy rock! and it paid off with a blue crayfish. Look at that thing. There it is, the sapphire of the West Virginia hillsides. It is so blue, I can't believe it. It is as blue as the sky is. Look at that crustacean. Wow. That must be the coolest looking crayfish I have ever seen. Now, this is a species that is subterranean, which means that they have burrows that can go down as deep as 8 feet under the ground, and they will come up into those little pools of water underneath the rocks to search for food, coming to the surface to breathe. Now, they do have gills, just like aquatic crayfish, but those gills allow them to breathe air. So you may be wondering to yourself, maybe a completely newly discovered crayfish. How cool would that be?
That would be awesome.
The blue crayfish is one of the most uniquely colored animals we have ever come across. Its elusive nature and subterranean dwelling made it difficult to find, but in the end, the long search was completely worth it. As of the release of this episode, this subspecies of crayfish has officially been classified as a new discovery and is in the process of being described by scientists. And when it comes to the common name officially becoming the sapphire crayfish, well, that's still up for debate, and we are told there is a chance it may actually happen. So I'll continue to keep my fingers crossed.
Okay, let's talk about the chimney crawfish that we have in Louisiana. Here is a chimney of a crawfish. So you can see these chimneys in your lawn. The tunnels underneath the chimneys are normally full of water. So why do they make chimneys? Well, basically the crawfish's purpose is not to build a chimney, but to submerge into the water beneath the water table. So while they're making a tunnel, they have to carry the mud out. Every time it grabs a pellet of mud, it cannot go walk across the lawn to put it somewhere away from the hole. So it just keeps accumulating around the hole on top of each other. So they don't have to travel far away from the hole, because then too dangerous. They become vulnerable to the predators. So they just stack them up on top of each other right at the entrance of the tunnel. They are smeared with mud while they're carrying this, digging this tunnel. Maybe that's why they're called mud bugs. And there's only one crawfish per chimney or per tunnel. I would like to talk about some myth that surrounds the crawfish. According to the information from LSU Agriculture Center, here are some facts to the myths. The first myth about crawfish is people think it is high in cholesterol. According to the LSU Ag Center, it's not. It is actually low in fat, saturated fat, and trans fat. The bright yellow to orange fat that is squeezed out from the head of the crawfish is not in fact fat. In fact, it's an organ called hepatopancreas, which is kind of like the liver in other animals. Another myth about crawfish dish is that it is not good for your heart. People with heart problems should not eat crawfish. That's not correct either, because of the same reason. They are low in fat, trans fat, and saturated fat. Furthermore, they are high in proteins and minerals. So it is good for you and not bad for the heart. In fact, shrimp, fish, crab has more fat than crawfish. There are some rules as to how to cook crawfish. The internal temperature must reach up to 145 degrees, and it should turn red. When it turns red, it means it. Well, if you cook too many of them, and if there are leftovers, you can keep the leftovers in the refrigerator up to 3 days. You can keep them frozen for 3 months. Normally, crawfish, potatoes, corn, and onions that we cook it with are low in sodium, but when people put too much salt into the boiling water, then that too much sodium is not healthy for anyone because it causes retention of water, and too much salt is not good for high blood pressure. So you can cook your crawfish with no salt, just crawfish, potato, onion, and corn. No salt. LSU Egg Center also recommends for those who have eaten too much crawfish, salty crawfish, should eat fruits and vegetables high in potassium that will blunt the effects of sodium. Crawfish are excellent source of high quality protein and low in calories and fats, trans fats, saturated, and they're also a good source for vitamin B12, iron, copper, and selenium. So this would be all for our crawfish program. I hope you found it useful. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.